Welcome back to Atomic News, monitoring global chaos so you don't have to. Today we return to the Middle East. The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively blocked, even if a few ships are still getting through. And those passages look less like restored freedom of navigation and more like quiet arrangements with Tehran. That tells us two things at once. Iran still controls the strait in practice, and there are still people in Tehran the region believes it can negotiate with. At the same time, Britain, France, and Italy, along with other partners, say they are ready to help secure safe passage through Hormuz and stabilize energy markets. But nobody wants to be the first to force the issue, while everything is still on fire. Israel then struck Iran's gas infrastructure, including South Pars and facilities around Escalates. This was not a symbolic hit, and not just a pretty headline for TV. South Pars is the world's largest offshore gas field and produces roughly 70 to 75% of Iran's gas. In other words, Israel hit one of the core pillars of Iran's domestic energy system. Iran answered by striking Ras Laffan in Qatar, one of the most important LNG hubs on the planet. Qatar Energy says the damage knocked out 17% of Qatar's LNG export capacity, including 2 LNG trains and a gas-to-liquids facility, with repairs expected to take 3 to 5 years. That is not just a blow to Qatar, it is a direct hit on the global gas market. And Iran was not done. It also hit the refinery complex in Haifa. Israeli officials first tried to play down the damage, but Reuters later reported that essential infrastructure at the complex was hit, even if most production remained online or was being restored. So now both sides are openly cutting into each other's fuel and gas nodes. That is why oil and gas prices jumped. Markets were not reacting to dramatic headlines. They were reacting to a real threat of supply disruption across the Gulf. And here comes the bitter irony. Washington is now so afraid of oil prices that it is considering lifting sanctions on around 140 million barrels of Iranian oil already stranded at sea. In other words, a war that was supposed to weaken Iran is already pushing the United States to consider putting Iranian oil back on the market. And while Washington burns money around Hormuz, Moscow is quietly cashing in. Russian seaborne crude exports have posted their biggest weekly revenue jump since 2023, driven by higher global prices. The White House made that even easier by issuing a 30-day waiver, allowing the sale not only of stranded Russian crude, but also Russian petroleum products loaded before March 12th. So yes, the Gulf War is helping fill the Kremlin's budget while America pays the bill. At the same time, Israel kept widening the war through Lebanon. It hit bridges over the Litani and continued striking targets deeper into the country. One of those strikes also injured an RT crew in southern Lebanon, so for at least some time, those journalists will not be able to lie professionally. Russian officials also complained that an earlier strike destroyed what they called a Russian cultural center in Nabatea, also known, more honestly, as a Russian house of intelligence and recruitment. And Israel's decapitation campaign has continued. Ali Larijani, secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council and one of the most important power brokers in the system, was killed earlier this week. Gholam Reza Soleimani, the commander of the Basij, was also killed. And Basij is not just another uniform structure. It is the regime's internal club, used to crush protests, terrorize society, and enforce ideological control. Israel also says it eliminated Intelligence Minister Esmail Khatib. The broader picture is already obvious. Israel is not just hitting infrastructure, it is systematically taking heads off the Iranian system. Then came Baghdad. A few days ago, we wrote about the attack on a U.S. base and warned about the possible use of fiber-optic FPV drones. Then footage appeared showing a drone calmly flying over the U.S. Embassy compound in the same city. Its exact technical profile has not been independently verified, but the clean image quality and the absence of the usual FPV interference strongly suggest a fiber optic link. Soon after that, the embassy itself was attacked. Reuters reported that at least 5 drones and rockets were used. Part of the strike was intercepted by CRAM, but one drone still hid inside the compound. This does not look like random intimidation. It looks like a very logical sequence. First reconnaissance, then strike. Now to the American side of the story. Reuters and CNN report that Iran struck an F-35. Tehran later released a video of the alleged intercept, but the authenticity of that footage remains questionable given Iran's long record of fake or misleading combat visuals. What matters is the core fact. The aircraft was damaged and forced to make an emergency landing. CENTCOM confirmed that the jet landed safely. The pilot is in stable condition and the incident is under investigation. Even one of the most advanced fighter jets in the world has now been damaged in this campaign. That is also why the Pentagon is heading to Congress for more money, and not a small amount. The Pentagon is seeking $200 billion in additional funding for the Iran war. At the same time, Washington is considering a broader next phase of the campaign, including more forces in the region, protection of shipping through Hormuz, possible operations around Karg Island, and even the deployment of thousands of additional American troops. Reuters reports that more than 7,800 U.S. strikes have already been carried out since February 28th, with 13 American troops killed and around 200 wounded. This is looking less and less like a limited operation, and more like an open-ended regional war with an open-ended bill. And this is where American politics starts to stink. Democrats are unlikely to hand Trump a blank check without a fight. They may not be able to block the money outright, but they can absolutely bargain over it. And frankly, it would only be fair if they fought to make sure that part of any new war package also goes to Ukraine, because Ukraine sent more than 200 specialists to help the United States and its allies in the Middle East, instead of using them at home against a far greater threat. And this is also where the economist's point lands cleanly. The war is making Trump weaker and angrier. A weaker and angrier Trump is usually not a formula for restraint. It is a formula for more chaos. Now, a short break from missiles and war. North Korea has just held what were clearly the most democratic elections in human history. The great, the beloved, the radiant leader Kim Jong-un has, of course, won again. According to state media reports cited by multiple outlets, 99.93% voted for the Workers' Party and its allies. As for the remaining 0.07%, they reportedly volunteered to serve as anti-aircraft gunnery targets. And in France, democracy has produced its own absurdist sideshow. In the town of Arcis-sur-Aube, the second round of the municipal election has gone viral because incumbent mayor Charles Hitler is facing Antoine Renault-Zielinski. Sometimes elections are about ideology. Sometimes they just look like a drunken history teacher formatted the ballot. And one more thing. Let me offer you an unconfirmed conspiracy theory. Some believe that, after being wounded, Mojtaba Khamenei is now being treated in Moscow, and that the recent internet blackouts there were partly driven by fears that American or Israeli intelligence could track his movement through the city's vast camera network. There is no hard evidence for this, but given that Moscow has long served as a hospice for dictators from all over the world, and that Reuters did confirm recent mobile internet disruptions in Moscow, the theory does not sound entirely absurd. This is Professor Nuke, and this was Atomic News. Stay alert.
So stay tuned for all the wondrous views. You're watching Atomic News.